On August 13th, 1961, the East German Volkskammer built a wall around the west half of Berlin. They intended to stop their people from fleeing, in addition to starving the people of the West. Germany was in turmoil. They had just lost World War II, and they were not unified anymore. After the war, agreements at Yalta and Potsdam split Germany into four occupation zones, each controlled by a different nation. The smallest of these was controlled by France, one of the Allied powers in the war. The northwesternmost zone was controlled by Great Britain, and the southeasternmost occupation zone was controlled by the United States. The east was controlled by the Soviet Union. These were all in the Allied powers, but the country they were in itself was in the Central Powers. There was a problem with these zones, however. The Soviets had controlled the capital city of Berlin directly in it, so technically the Soviets controlled the most important city in the nation, and the zones wanted to share the nation equally, so the capital city itself was split into four occupation zones as well. Eventually, in 1949, the occupation zones controlled by Great Britain, France, and the United States joined together along with the smaller zones in the capital city controlled by the same nations. These zones joined because the agreement at Yalta and Potsdam was only supposed to be temporary. But why did the zone controlled by the Soviets not unify with the rest? Simple: communism. This took place during the beginning of the Cold War. Communism and capitalism just simply did not want anything to do with each other. The unified western side of Germany became West Germany, and the eastern Soviet controlled side became East Germany, and Berlin became a split city. I met up with Andrea Agarwal, a former West German resident, to discuss what life was like in a divided country.
So I was growing up as a kid in a divided Germany, and the things that I remember most are actually the news and the weather. So every night we watched the news and the weather together in the family, and they showed the map of Germany, and they showed the weather for the West Germany, and then there was a big line in the middle of the map, and then they showed the news and the weather for Eastern Germany. And I never understood why there was this big line in the middle of Germany. And then my mom explained to me that they're both Germans on both sides, but that the people on the eastern side um, have never traveled abroad, they have never been to another country, and that they don't have freedom like we have in Western Germany. And we want to help them out, so we bring them the weather and the news from Western Germany because they don't have free media in Eastern Germany. So they get a new perspective by listening illegally to the Western German news and weather. So that was one thing that I remember pretty much the most before the wall fell.
This event definitely changed Germany. The border of East and West Germany was definitely closed and heavily guarded, but the West and East Berlin border was open. This was great for people who wanted to visit family on the other half of the capital city, but it came with a problem: people fleeing from East Berlin to West Germany. East Germany didn't notice this for a while when ordinary people were doing it, but eventually a lot of East Germany's best, most important people started fleeing too. East Germany was not happy about this. In fact, they went far enough to make a wall. In the middle of the night, on August 13th, 1961, East German officials silently built a wall on the border of East and West Berlin, working quickly, trying not to make a noise to avoid people questioning what they were doing. They were doing so because of a decree from the East German Volkskammer, the government of East Germany at the time, under the rule of Walter Ulbricht. People were unaware of this wall until morning. When they woke up, they found an unfinished concrete wall with barbed wire on top. This was devastating to both halves. Families were split apart. People were split from their job on the other side and became unemployed. Roads were split. Communities were split. East Germany officially closed the border. It was definitely no longer open. East Germany didn't stop at a wall at the city border. When it was finished, it had landmines, watchtowers, guard dogs, barbed wire, concrete bricks, and armed guards. Also, they expanded the wall so it engulfed the whole city. People fleeing wasn't the only reason they built this wall, using up so much money and resources. They also wanted West Berlin for themselves. Their plan was to starve them and make them surrender their land to them. The leader thought that they were a threat, being fully inside their nation. They had little trade with other countries and little stores in the small sub-city, so it would appear that their plan to starve them would work. But why did they have little trade? They were a capital city. This was because of the Berlin blockade. Before the wall was even put up, and before East Germany realized people were fleeing, they were already making plans to starve them. They blocked off all the railroads and any way of transportation of food going to West Berlin on June 24th, 1948. So it would appear that their plan to starve them would work. It didn't because of the Berlin airlift. West Germany was getting frustrated toward the US and its allies because they were not helping them with their struggle to stay alive. In response, the US and its allies started a plan called the Berlin Airlift. They flew cargo over the wall and dropped it into the city. This lasted for more than a year and carried more than 2.3 million tons of cargo into West Berlin. According to History.com, during the Berlin airlift, an Allied supply plane took off or landed in West Berlin every 30 seconds. The planes made nearly 300,000 flights in all. In addition, John F. Kennedy, the President of the United States at the time, came personally over to West Berlin and said this quote, Ich bin ein Berliner, which means I am a Berliner.
All, all free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the word Ich bin ein Berliner.
After this effort, the city was still split, but some brave people had had enough and attempted to cross illegally. It is unknown exactly how many people managed to cross, but 191 people died while trying to escape, being shot to death by the armed guards. The wall still stood, proud and tall, but it and its controversy would fall. On November 9th, 1989, people of both sides approached the wall in a mass riot, ordering them to let them cross. They attempted to maintain order, but eventually they gave up and it was no longer an order. People celebrated by demolishing the wall with axes and sledgehammers. East Germany officially opened the border of West and East Berlin, along with the border of East and West Germany, in defeat. This was monumental because this event marked the end of the Cold War officially. So after the wall fell, how were you affected instantly?
Instantly, we had kids moving to town from Eastern Germany. So in our school, kids started showing up, and families moved from Eastern Germany to Western Germany. The economy in Eastern Germany was not doing very well, so people made more money when they moved to Western Germany. So a lot of families moved over from Eastern Germany to Western Germany. So a few ended up in my region, and they spoke a very different dialect. So there was a lot of teasing going on. I think the West German kids were not very nice to the Eastern German kids, because the Eastern Germans didn't have much money and spoke a little funny. I think we could have been nicer.
The tyranny of the East German government ended, and the conflict turned into a compromise. This was important in history because if it didn't happen, the lives of almost 200 people wouldn't have been taken and families wouldn't have been apart for so long. Also, the Cold War would still be going on and the wall's power would still be ruling over people to this day. This event had long-term effects on both former sides and subsidies. For example, according to the Washington Post, there is a clear divide in statistics of the sides in income, poverty, and trash production. Even though the wall fell roughly 25 years ago, the divide is still visible in those statistics and more. In maps of these statistics, one former side has a much higher or lower rate than the other side. This was an example of a poor way to settle a problem. It was unnecessary to build a wall and cause the death of nearly 200 with an end goal to just stop people from fleeing a country, along with trying to take the country for yourself. This didn't have to happen. The East German Volkskammer could have found a different solution which was more peaceful than this. Hopefully, we can learn from this mistake and find better solutions to problems that don't have to be so cruel.